This video contains main story spoilers for the entire Endwalker expansion to patch 6.3. The main story of patch 6.3, Gods Revel, Lands Tremble, took a big leap forward this time, and we got a whole bunch of answers but also new questions. Starting off with Vitra and his call, which we now know was to Azdaia, as he sensed his sister for the briefest of moments. The fact that he could even sense a trace of her on the other side of a continent is a feat in and of itself, giving us yet more information on Dragonkind and the First Brood in particular. Vitra isn't Azdaia's only kin, however, and if he sensed her, it stands to reason Hraesvelgr and Tiamat did the same. And even if they didn't, odds are they heard Vitra call out to her. I know Hraesvelgr got loads of screen time in Heavensward, and Tiamat in Shadowbringers and also likely 7.0. But from a story perspective, I love the idea of 3 of the First Brood banding together to save their sister. This sets us on a path to find her, which leads us to Garlemald. Signs pointed to an abandoned village in the mountains, where the Reaper arts were created and perfected. We help out as we can until we can get there, and we happily learn a lot more about Zero, as it appears being around us is having a positive effect on her, the ice around our heart starting to melt as it were. I'm not sure if I'm the only one, but I saw some chemistry between Zero and Julius. Let me know if you felt the same. We also got a glimpse into Zero's past before the 13th fell, showing how she fought and failed to protect the village from Memoriates. She was also likely a gladiator or paladin back in those days, which makes me wonder when she adopted the Reaper arts. Perhaps she learned them as a result of her forced pact with Xenos. Also of note, if you have Reaper unlocked, the dialogue of certain NPCs change, recognizing we have obtained these arts. We get our transportation arranged and proceed into the mountains towards Lapis Manalis. I have to say, the journey there and the scenery at the peak make this duty one of my top favourites in FF14. Even the Tower of Babel in the distance is a sight to see. I rather enjoyed the first boss fight, mainly for the call of the mountains with the stampedes of beastkin. I honestly found it a funny and fun experience. We get some juicy information about the Reapers in the Garlemald of old, as we pass through the village and learn a bit more about their arts and how they train. Reapers trained and honed their arts against a series of automata they called the Figures of the Pale Harvest. The first ones we encounter are called Galatea Parva, which look a lot like mammoths, and only Reapers who are forced to pact with an avatar were allowed to spar with them. Then we have the second boss called Galatea Magna, a powerful mannequin which was designed to push a Reaper to their limits, or a 4-player group. Take note of all the inactive Magnas and Parvas scattered throughout the area. A Duelmaster's memorandum that we found indicates that the arts for creating and properly repairing them have been lost. Seems this knowledge was passed down from one Duelmaster to the next. However, the last Duelmaster with that knowledge left their village seeking unparalleled beauty, and the knowledge went with them. If I was to theorize, given that Reapers are from the early days of the Empire, the odds are these automata are likely creations based on knowledge from the city of Gog, whose survivors founded Garlemald. In the ruins of the village, we find a bit of history about the last days of the Reaper's involvement with the Empire, and I found it quite interesting. Let me read the entire faded record. Emperor Sullus is convinced his Magitech will spark a revolution in warfare as we know it, and as he devotes further resources to its advancement, our arts continue to fall out of favour. I fear the age of the Reaper has come to an end. After all our forebears have sacrificed for the good of the Empire, the blood spilled, the lives lost, they would dare deem us relics of a bygone era. Indeed, they believe the future lies with their Reaper battle armour. I can't help but see a direct Japanese history parallel between the Reapers of the Empire and the samurai traditions of Japan. The arts of the samurai gave way for modern weapons such as the gun and cannon. From this record, we learned that the Reaper Magitech armour was one of Garlemald's first instruments of Magitech warfare. Not only that, its name was either paying homage to or was a slight to the Reaper forces that Magitech replaced. Knowing Emet-Selch as we do now, it was likely the latter.
I haven't the foggiest what you're talking about.
As we continue to journey past the village deeper into the mountain, we find ourselves in a giant cavern that's covered in ceruleum, a literal treasure trove of it. My first thought when I entered was the northern crater in Final Fantasy VII. This will likely be a place we revisit later, as this ceruleum will be of great use in rebuilding Garlemald. At the end of this cavern, we find a massive void gate that allowed the powerful Voidsent to cross over. And guarding it is none other than Cagnazzo, an archfiend of Golbez. We fight the good fight against what I can only classify as a water-wielding battle junkie. He seems rather happy about being defeated, but before he fades away, he shows us how they managed to open such a gate in the first place, and produces one of Azhdaya's eyes, sources of great power as we learned in Heavensward. I originally had the thought about putting that eye into a mammoth similar to Varshan, until he informs us that its power is greatly depleted, and Azhdaya's will is absent from it. My theory is, when we cross into the void again with the eye in hand, it will lead us directly to Azhdaya. We part ways with Alphinaud and Alisaie and head back to Thavnir, in order to make our planned journey to the void. But in classic Final Fantasy fashion, a crisis breaks out as we prepare. A massive deluge of ether erupts from the isle where Alzadal's legacy is located. Estinian and Y'shtola head there to investigate, while we and Zero track the beast that emerged from the isle in the Aether's wake. Just before we encounter it, we get word from Y'shtola that the vault was destroyed, along with the furnace and the void gate within. Nothing we can do about that, sadly. The damage done, we continue the hunt. Turns out the beast is Golbez's fourth and final archfiend, the fire-wielding Rubicante. I have to say, he's more neutral than the other three, willing to openly discuss matters with us. Doesn't change the fact that he serves Golbez's will, and he was the one that destroyed the vault to keep us from getting in the way of Golbez's plan. We engage in combat and manage to lay him low, and in his last moments he agrees to tell us everything, giving us a window into why he was chosen and what Golbez's ultimate plan is. As we guessed months ago, Golbez's plan is to invade the source and take our world, so that all Voidsent may be able to finally embrace death of their choosing. But even worse than that, he's going to go as far as breaking the barrier between our worlds, which would be a calamity unlike anything we have seen before. Before he fades away, he reveals that Golbez is based on the moon of the 13th, and keeps Azhdaya there. With the way things stand now, we have been cut off from the void with no way to cross over. Y'shtola goes back to Sharlayan to research a way for us to get back there, while everyone else goes about their business. The way I see it, the most logical way back would be creating another Atomos, and finding a void gate or planar fissure for it to absorb. After the MSQ, I found Zero in our usual viewing place. Since being in your company, I cannot help but feel I've changed somehow. The world does not appear as it did when I first arrived, nor, I suspect, would the void were I to return. It is a strange, though not unpleasant feeling. Nidhana was still at the Great Works, and learned of the vault's destruction. Even now, I struggle to believe Alzadal's legacy and its void gate is no more. But fear not, we will find a way back to the void for you. We still have the work of House Daymare to guide our research after all. Finally, and most importantly, we find Y'shtola and Sharlayan deep into her research. Ah, Worm. I'm afraid you've come too soon. My research has yet to yield fruit. But rest assured I will find a way to secure a means to traverse the rift to the other worlds and put an end to Golbez's scheme. Quick thing here. Take note of how she phrased her sentence. Finding a way to other worlds rather than to the void. Maybe this highlights that the method we get to return to the void is actually the one that can be used to access the other reflections. By far, the biggest lore reveal happens in the final scene of the MSQ, where we see Golbez in his headquarters stating that his archfiends are gone, but they had done their duty, and now it was up to him alone. Azdaia is there hovering above his throne, trapped and clearly in agony as she cries out, likely to Vitra, before Golbez binds her further. Then we zoom out, and it's revealed that Golbez's base is a platform inside the crater on the moon, much like the one we see on the moon of the source that held Zodiark. This seems to confirm that the figure we saw Golbez fighting against was indeed a Watcher, meaning it's likely every reflection has its own Watcher on the moon. There is no energy flowing from the crater, meaning either a piece of Zodiark is gone, or that piece was taken and used by Golbez. However, I noted that there's also no evidence of any seals around the crater, like we see on the source. I feel this is the perfect time to reintroduce our allies from the first, namely Silva and Unukalhai. Unukalhai himself has the knowledge and ability to open void gates, an ability he shares with Tainor. Perhaps the time has come for Y'shtola to find our method for travelling to other reflections, and we go to the first together and amass a party to enter the void. But just maybe, Golbez's speech about a world of light was actually referring to the first rather than the source, so if he launches an attack on the first, we head there ourselves to help drive him back. It seems clear though, when we get back to the void, our destination is the moon, which seems largely unaffected by the void that formed around the 13th. This also has me wondering, Hydaelyn created the Loporrits to use the moon as a vessel to spirit the peoples of Aetheris to safe harbour, should Zodiark fall and no means exist to stop Meteion. The question is, did she enact similar plans on the other reflections? And if so, was it before or after the fall of the 13th? But we did note during Endwalker that the first didn't seem to be affected at all by Meteion's Song of Oblivion. But that's patch 6.3, God's Revel, Lands Tremble. Thank you so much for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, leave your opinion in the comments or via the like button. I have a feeling that everything will be wrapped up in patch 6.4, with 6.5 setting the stage for the expansion 7.0. But we only have to wait 4 months to find out. Thanks all, and now, as always, have a good one.